And then I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to make Muppets. I want to make creatures. So wacky, crazy, hairy creatures or huge articulated creatures or all sorts of things. The sewing side of all of that, basically. You know, when you're working in that kind of environment, you don't often have a huge amount of creativity. Most of the time you're being told what to do and how to do it, or you're doing a production line of, 30 suits or something, and they're all the same, and it's not very creative. My top tip is just to ignore those kind of voices, the imposter voices in your head saying you're not worthy, or people are going to laugh at you, or people are going to think this or that about you, and just tell anyone that will listen about your channel. Find people that are doing what you're doing, especially if your family or your friends don't have any idea about it. And if you're ever having a wobble, or you're just like, oh, I've had this comment, or, is this true, or whatever, they will have your back. And I think it's just super helpful to have that for your mental health.
Hi, I'm Claire, founder of Creativity Found, a community for creative learners and educators, connecting adults who want to find a creative outlet with the artists and crafters who can help them do so, with workshops, courses, online events and kits. For this podcast, I chat with people who have found or refound their creativity as adults. We'll explore their childhood experiences of the arts, discuss how they came to the artistic practices they now love, and consider the barriers they may have experienced between the two. We'll also explore what it is that people value and gain from their newfound artistic pursuits, and how their creative lives enrich their practical, necessary, everyday lives. For this episode, I'm speaking with Emma Brassfield, who once wanted to be a Blue Peter presenter, like many of my guests. She did go on to use her creative talents behind the camera, working in film and television, but has since put herself in the limelight to help others to get making from the comfort of their own homes. Hi, Emma.
Hi, Claire. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. So tell me about your latest creative project.
So I have got a sewing channel on YouTube, and I've been doing that since the end of 2020, I want to say, around September. And I'm teaching people to sew with small, fun projects and bags over there.
Oh, sounds fabulous. Sounds like the kind of thing I could do with. Do you come from an artistic family or have an artistic background?
I do, but not in the same kind of way. So both my parents are very musical. My dad's in the music industry, and he kind of engineers products for the music industry, and my mum is a piano teacher, so definitely very creative. My brother's a sign writer as well, but obviously that's quite different to what I do. I've always been taught to kind of reach and go for what you want to go to. My dad's obviously, like I say, in the music industry, and that's a very difficult industry to get into, so he always kind of imparted to me that I should just, whatever I want to do, just go for it. And I was very, very lucky to have super supportive parents in that way. My mum was always kind of making stuff when I was younger. I remember her making baby books and things, all beautifully decorated. So she's obviously got that artistic talent. And my mum's mother made all her clothes when she was younger. That was mostly out of a cost and finance decision, but she was obviously very talented in that way. And then my granddad on my dad's side was also very artistic. So all in all, yeah, a lot of kind of artistic things going on, but not necessarily sewing from a young age, yeah.
So with all those lovely influences, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I always remember practicing being a Blue Peter presenter. That was kind of like my dream job, was to be a Blue Peter presenter. That kind of felt like too far away, like it was unachievable, and I didn't really want to be a children's presenter as such. Definitely wanted to be like the craft kind of side, but that kind of wasn't really a thing, and didn't know what to do about that. So Then I don't know how I heard about it, but I'm a massive fan of the film Labyrinth and a few other things like the Muppets and things like that. And so that had a heavy influence. And I think at one point someone must have said, well, you do realise that these are made things and that is a job. I think it might have been my mum. And then I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to make Muppets. I want to make creatures. So then I was kind of thought that would always be makeup, like applying prosthetic makeups. I didn't really realise that there was this sewing side of it that existed, which again would be the Muppet kind of side of it, on a basic term. Yeah, so I just sort of started. When I was in school, I had a really great teacher, Mrs. Payne, who I remember she was like, well, you can go to this, we had those careers talks, well, you can go to this college and go to London College of Fashion and you can do this course and then that will take you into these kind of pathways. And so then from about 14, from like when I was choosing my GCSEs, everything was geared up to get into London College of Fashion. That's where I wanted to go. It was the only course at the time that I knew of or that I'd been told about. And so everything was geared for that. I eventually got to go to London College of Fashion and I did costume and special effects. And then I was a creature costume maker since I graduated in 2002.
Well, I've got two questions there. The second one is how your focus on makeup then got you to creature making. But before that, I also know you must have been quite a brave young person because at age 16 you went to America to study, didn't you?
Yeah. I don't really know how that kind of the bravery came out, if you like. I've always been, I don't know, quite confident, I guess. But then I also remember not having a great time at school. But yeah, I had a friend and she had this leaflet about going to America to study for a year as an exchange student, but it was a one-way exchange. It wasn't really exchange at all. And living with an American family and going to an American school and experiencing the whole of American culture, which I just thought was the best idea ever. And again, I was very lucky in that my parents supported me to do that. And yeah, I went and lived when I was 16 to 17 for, I think it was about 10, 11 months in Illinois with a family over there. I went to a very small school. There was 50 kids. Loved every minute of it. Was a cheerleader and just did loads of stuff that you don't get to do in the UK, or at least you didn't used to.
Yeah.
While I was there, I started sort of teaching myself to face paint and do makeup. And yes, definitely in Halloween I had loads of practice and my host dad let me practice on him all the time and my friends and things. So that was really great. And then when I came back from there, I then saw a local face painter in the local shopping centre. And I just kind of went up and asked for a job and showed the lady who is now a brilliant friend, Vivian, I showed her sort of the things that I'd done when I was in America. She gave me a job, taught me on the job, taught me everything. Back then, of course, there was no YouTube, sounding very old. There wasn't really an internet either. So she just taught me everything on the job and I went from there really. And then that then helped me when I came to do my interview at London College of Fashion because I had those kind of pictures in my portfolio, although I had a lot of textile work because I did A-level textiles as well, and that they kind of encouraged me and pushed me to go into costume, which I'm so glad about. It's the best decision I ever made.
So you applied to the college with makeup in mind, but they pushed you towards the costume. How did that go?
It was in the interview process, so it was a really hard interview. It was my final year of A-levels. I had to do all of that. And then they asked me for a separate interview project as well on top of that, which was just a bit like, so much work. So I had to go with my portfolio and this project that I'd made, leave it in the morning along with everybody else. We just dumped our portfolio in the room. And then we went back at lunch to see if we even had an interview. And it was that kind of classic names on the board and people were coming out crying because they didn't get an interview and all of this. And I think something like 600 people applied for 80 places on that course that year. It was really stressful. So I went in and as I say, I had a lot of makeup, but I also had, or face painting really, but I had way more textiles because, as I say, that's what I was doing at college for A level. And they just said, your textiles work is really, really strong. We would love you to go into the costume side. And then after a year and a half, it used to be that it was costume or makeup for the first year and a half, and then it went into special effects. So I just knew I wanted to do the special effects kind of side. So that's the path I took. And it was brilliant because it gave me all those skills to then transfer those into that side of things.
Brilliant. That's so exciting. I didn't even know that such a thing existed. With those studies under your belt, were you able to go straight out to work?
Yeah, so when I left uni, I did what you do and I just sent my CV out to everyone. Obviously, it's quite tricky doing special effects. So there was a few people that I knew through other students, and you kind of had a lot of external tutors as well, which was super helpful. And so I applied or I sent my CV off to Nick Dudman, who was the head of creatures for the Harry Potter series. And I did any kind of work that I could find. I did low budget things. I did things that I got kind of a tenuous contact and I just rang them up. I did all this from the July until the January. I was solid through, but I wasn't really earning anything. And it was all kind of small bitty bits. So I got a letter shortly after I sent it off to Nick saying, we'd love you to come for an interview, ring this number. So I rang that number and then they said, ring back tomorrow, ring back next week, ring back in 2 weeks. I just couldn't get through to Nick. And then I thought, I'm just going to ring this number that had also been sent with the letter, another number. And I rang that up and very casually said, can I speak to Nick? They said, no, he's not here, but here's his mobile number. So I rang the mobile number and he said, come to an interview tomorrow. So I went to the interview. I was late, overslept, just had an alarm clock. I didn't have an alarm on my phone. It was all one of those, got lost. I think I was an hour late. Absolute disaster. But he was very kind about it. And he got his head of fabrication, which is the sewing side of creatures. He got his head of fabrication day to come in. He looked at my portfolio. He, unbeknownst to me, had seen it at my leaving show in my college. Long story short, I then started as a trainee the following January on Harry Potter 3, Prisoner of Azkaban.
Wow.
And then it just kind of, it's like any of these things, it's who you know and it's contacts, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And so I've been doing creature costume work since then, really.
Well done to you for the perseverance in the first place and being brave and to keep phoning. That is brilliant. Can you explain to me what you mean by fabrication and creature work?
So fabrication is, like I say, the sewing side of animatronics and creatures. So if you think along the lines of Teletubbies, big character costumes, I mainly do TV and film. So it's anything from a creature costume like a Teletubby all the way through to a superhero costume, a specialist costume like that. So it could be something with body padding. So I do a lot of fat suits. I've kind of specialized in that as well. Pregnancy bumps. A lot of time directors will cast someone who they just love. They've got all the skills. They can dance or they can do this or that, but they're not the right size for the character. So they need a bump made or padding made, or it will be like I made some padding for the crown, and it will be like they're obviously playing, I think it was the Queen Mum, and she needed just a little bit of tummy fat, whereas the actress was super slim. So it's all those kind of things, as well as kind of wacky, crazy, hairy creatures or huge articulated creatures or all sorts of things. The sewing side of all of that, basically.
Oh, that sounds super. I do imagine that business, however, I would imagine the working environment is quite full on and busy and perhaps not 9 to 5, for example. I don't know, but I know that you have children. How did having a family, did that affect your career in film and television?
Yes, definitely. So I've got 2 children now, and my youngest is 4, so she's still very young. My eldest was around that age when I quit, quote unquote, the film industry. I was working full time on Star Wars: The Force Awakens, which was a brilliant job, brilliant experience. I loved it. But I didn't see her pretty much Monday to Friday for about 6 months when I was filming. And although it was a brilliant experience, that's not why I had children. And so I was kind of looking for a way to juggle it all. I know all parents are the same. The struggle and the juggle is quite hard with that work-life balance. So I started up a small toy business, all hand-sewn toys. And I did that when my eldest was quite young. I think she was about 1. And I had that as a sideline. Most people in the film industry have some kind of sideline so that they can do that in between jobs, or because obviously everything is freelance. So sometimes you don't have work and you can pick that up and things like that. So I started this toy business when she was about 1. And as I say, she was about 4 at this time, and it was gaining momentum. And I kind of did a bit of number crunching, and I realized that I could almost leave the industry or do a lot less and do that full time and spend more time with her. I had to change a lot of things, obviously, because it was a bit of a drop down financially, but we made it work. And also, it was also the fact that I was, when you're working in that kind of environment, you don't often have a huge amount of creativity. Sometimes you do, and you get to do research and development and things, but most of the time you're being told what to do and how to do it, or you're doing a production line of 30 suits or something, and they're all the same, and it's not very creative. So I wanted to get that creative spark back, so that's why I started my business as well. And as I say, that took off. And then I realized that I didn't want to be a factory, and I was still kind of doing that kind of factory line, but then it was just moved to my own business. As much as I love making the toys, I still do sell some of my toys. I then realized that I went back to my original kind of childhood dream of being a presenter, and realized that YouTube was becoming this big thing, or is this big thing, and wanted to start my own YouTube channel to teach people how to make my toys and how to make fun small projects and bags. And that's kind of where it's all led, really. I still do my costume work part-time. I do a couple of jobs a year, probably. Definitely on a very much contract freelance basis. And then I do my Studio 77 around that as well.
Brilliant. That's so inventive. And it's good to hear that you are, figuring out what's working for you, where you're getting your creative flow, and how to move that. We all go to YouTube when we go, oh, I want to know how to do such and such. But from the other side of the camera, how do you start this? How do you niche it? How did you decide what you were going to do? I mean, that's loads of questions there, Claire. That's not very helpful, Emma. But give me an idea of how you got started, and just how the process works, and what's difficult, what's easy, what's fun, what's not.
Well, when I started YouTube, I had a look on YouTube, and of course you see all these big channels and you see they've had millions of views, and you think, well, I thought, at least I should say, I just put a video up there and people watch it. People will find it, they will watch it, etc. Well, it doesn't really work like that, as I quickly found out. It takes so much hard work. And, sometimes you see on Facebook and things, people commenting flippantly saying, oh, my child wants to be a YouTuber or whatever. And I just think, you have no idea how hard it is to actually get anywhere on any of these platforms. Anyone with a big following, I have so much respect, because it's a bit like an athlete. You don't see all those behind the scene hours. You just see them winning that medal. You don't see all those behind the scene hours with YouTube or Instagram or whatever. You just see that they've got loads of followers. So how I have done it so far, and I'm still classed as quite a small channel, or very small channel compared to a lot of people, but how I've done it is that I found my niche. I do think it's important to have a niche. I found my niche naturally because I was already making small projects and, like I say, my toys. So I kind of fell into that. My creature costume work, I use a lot of different materials, so many different materials, and you have to be quite up on all those different things to make kind of the crazy big structures and things. So then I naturally fell into bag making because that's very structural. So that's kind of how I found my niche. And then in terms of how I built the channel, I think my top tip is just to ignore those kind of voices, the imposter voices in your head saying you're not worthy, or people are going to laugh at you, or people are going to think this or that about you, and just tell anyone that will listen about your channel. I went to the library yesterday and I picked up a sewing related book, and the librarian said, "Oh, I love this book. I get it out all the time." And I told her about my channel, because you just never know who's going to watch it, who's going to tell their friends, who's going to share it, all of that. So that's my first thing that I did. And then the other thing that I do, and I still do it constantly, is you need to find your kind of community of where your people are on other platforms. So if you're promoting your YouTube channel, then are they on Reddit? Are they on Pinterest? Are they on Facebook? Where are they? And then promote your stuff on there as well and try and send them over. So yeah, lots of promoting, lots of hard work. And then one quote that I absolutely love, that I need to get it and put it on the wall actually, is the only people who don't succeed are the ones who quit. I really think that resonates for social media, because as long as you keep plugging away and listening to advice as well. So I know a lot of people find it hard to hear that constructive criticism, but although it is hard immediately if someone has a negative point, I always try to take a step back and revisit it maybe the next day or something and see, actually, do they have a point? Is my audio bad? Is my lighting bad? Can I change that? How can I make it better? Things like that. I think it's important to keep striving to be better for each video, and making better content, because if you get better, then people will find you and you're only going to grow.
Yeah, brilliant. That's made me think a little bit actually as well about, often I speak with my guests when they come back to an art form about presenting it to an audience. And with you are presenting your work, but you're presenting yourself to an audience. How have you felt about that? Like when you first go out there, you put your first video out, and also with being on YouTube, people can comment, some people comment harshly. How have you coped with that on your emotional well-being side of things?
So I think going to the second part of your question about the comments and the kind of trolling, I think anytime you put yourself out there, you're going to get those kind of comments and reactions. There's just some people have not got things better to do. And I think my top tip for that is to find some kind of support bubble. So I don't know anyone in my real life who does YouTube or content creation, but I've managed to find an amazing group of supportive people who are doing the same thing. They totally get it. At that kind of 2:00 in the morning when I've lost some footage or something's gone wrong, I know that I can message them. I'm lucky that they're international. There's always someone awake. I highly recommend that as well. And they've just been so supportive. So I definitely recommend, if you can, reach out to other content creators, or if it's not content you're making, find people that are doing what you're doing, especially if your family or your friends don't have any idea about it, and just find that kind of group of people that will help you. And if you're ever having a wobble, or you're just like, oh, I've had this comment, or is this true, or whatever, they will have your back. And I think it's just super helpful to have that for your mental health. In terms of being confident on camera, I did go to drama school when I was younger, so I've kind of tried to remember those kind of things. I went for 2 years doing drama school full time, so I'm very lucky that I have that to pull back on. However, obviously I've never done that professionally. I've always been on the other side of the camera, so it is definitely very different. And it's a long time ago that I did the drama training. So I think it's just about lots of practice. Just keep redoing it. in lockdown, I binge watched anything I could find about YouTube, about how to become better on YouTube, how to feel confident on YouTube, little hacks, little tricks, how to get people to keep watching, all those kind of things. Anything I could find, I still watch all those kind of things now, not quite as much, but just little silly things that you might not think about, like having a coffee before you go and film, just to make yourself have more energy. Or I've got a friend who's done very well from doing very calm, it's still making content, but she has a very calming, soothing voice, and a lot of people comment on that. So it's just finding your place in the kind of internet, and kind of working on that and pushing that to its best ability. That's what I'm continually trying to do. I hope that comes across as well.
I think it definitely does. Keep learning and have a supportive community. Now, I could plug creativityfound.co.uk here, but I won't. But that's a great community for creative people, creative facilitators. Where do you get your ideas for your makes? And you have patterns as well that are available for these makes. Where do your ideas come from?
So many places. I'm always looking, obviously, on Pinterest and in books and YouTube, and I definitely don't take other people's ideas, but I try and give them a twist. Or if there's something that's done particularly well, I think, well, obviously I'm not going to copy that, but can I put my own spin on it? So, and I don't ever use the same patterns. That's just an absolute no-no. I always make my own patterns and figure it out just from the image, so that it's not going to be the same. Sometimes I get ideas from something random, like a gift card, or a birthday card or something like that. There's just I don't know, they just pop in my head, and then I draw them down. I've got a notebook.
Yeah, perfect. You mentioned earlier that you do still do some monster work, and you juggle various roles. Do you feel now you have achieved a better balance with regards to exploring your own creativity while also working, looking after a family, than when you were solely working on the films?
Definitely, yes. I still think I don't have the balance quite right, because I am a bit of a workaholic. And I do need to learn to turn my phone off more and just ignore everything and be in the present. But I think that's just a juggle generally. If you're an entrepreneur and work for yourself, or I think that's a really hard juggle with a family. But definitely in terms of being with the kids, being able to take them to their classes, doing the pickup and the drop off, all of that has completely changed. I wasn't able to do any of that before, because I was leaving the house at 6, 7, getting home at 7, 8. So I definitely feel like that kind of work-life balance is better. But like I say, I probably need to work on the screen time and being a bit more present, like us all, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think everybody says that. So, going forward, do you have any specific plans for the future?
Yeah, so this year, one of my resolutions is to do more sew-alongs. I've done a couple in the past for a big kind of Christmas event at the end of 2020, when I was first starting out. But I want to definitely do more. So I'm going to be concentrating on doing those on YouTube and in the Facebook group. I think it's going to be really fun for people to sew along as well.
So, explain to me how that works.
So you will prep up your fabrics and everything before. You'll have everything cut out, and it will usually be a free pattern. And then you'll come along to the live, and we will sew it up, and I'll explain how to sew it up together, and you'll be sewing along with me. Or you can just watch and chat as well, of course, and sew it up at a later date. So there's the option there too.
Oh, that sounds so cool. It's been so lovely to speak to you today, Emma. It's been really interesting to hear your story. How can people connect with you?
So you can find me on all the social medias as Studio 7T7. So that's number 7, letter T, number 7. I'm obviously on YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, and I also have a Facebook page called Sew, Create and Craft, which is in my link in my Instagram profile. But I always reply to all the comments on YouTube as well, of course. So if anybody's got any specific kind of project questions, do put them on there and I will get back to you. I always find that it helps other people as well. They might be reading the comments trying to find the answer to their question too. So I always really like it when people put questions on there. But yeah, everywhere basically.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Claire. It's been really fun.
Thanks so much for listening to Creativity Found. If your podcast app has the facility, please leave a rating and review to help other people find us. On Instagram and Facebook, follow @CreativityFound Podcast, and on Pinterest, look for @CreativityFound. And finally, don't forget to check out creativityfound.co.uk, the website connecting adults who want to find a creative outlet with the artists and crafters who can help them tap into their creativity.